Welcome to Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to on the show here today. You can follow me on Twitter at dgasper24 and be sure to subscribe and get notified every single time a new episode drops here of Brewers Daily. But lots to get to. We got an announcement of when the trade deadline is. Also, the Brewers made some news here today by announcing their first batch of non-roster invites to spring training, and that's really where I want to get to here because it's something that's actually happening here. It has got some headliners in it as well, and chief among them is Jesus Made. And Made, the top Brewers prospect, he's the number 3 prospect in all of baseball according to MLB Pipeline, and he is 18 years old. Still, he is 18 years old. He made it to Double-A last season, and he could be that next Jackson Chourio for this organization. And Made has gotten an invite to Major League Camp. Now, that technically does give him a chance at making the big league roster. However, incredibly unlikely that he ends up making it. More likely is that he is among the first round of cuts when they do, start cutting guys from camp and sending them back over to the minor league side. It'll be a great experience for him, as it will be for a lot of these guys. But Jesus Made is really kind of the headliner here. He will get opportunities in the big league clubhouse, on the big league side of camp. We'll see him probably a ton in the first, week or two of Cactus League games as spring training rolls along. And, we'll get our first kind of real look at him in terms of a Milwaukee fan base. Now, there are some of us prospect nerds, such as myself, who have watched, the Carolina Mudcats games or the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers games where he has played, and you see him there and the talent that he has. But, when you kind of get it to a bit more of a broader audience that you will have in the spring training games, that's kind of going to be our first real look at him. He's going to be wearing some number like number 96 or something super high like that. That's not going to actually be his number when he plays for the Brewers down the road. But Made gets the invite to camp along with 8 other players getting the invite. And those guys, along with Made, are Luke Adams, Luis Lara, Cooper Pratt, Ramon Rodriguez, Brock Wilken, Jet Williams, who was just acquired in the Freddie Peralta trade, Matt Wood, and Tate Keener. So that's the list of non-roster invitees the Brewers have announced for spring training. There could be more. There very likely will be more. But these are some of the big names in the Brewers farm system that are going to get a chance to compete with the big league club early on in spring training here. Now, most of these guys are long shots to make the roster this year. Last year, the Craig Yoho was the non-roster invite who lasted the longest in the camp. He was really putting together a pretty good battle for a bullpen spot. Ultimately, didn't end up getting it. Got sent back down to AAA, but got called up a little bit throughout the year. And now he's on the 40-man, so he doesn't need the non-roster invite. But for a lot of these guys, it'll be their first taste of big league camp. Very excited to see what they can do. It's going to be probably a relatively short taste, but it'll be important for their development, for them to get familiar with the big league coaching staff, because this is where Pat Murphy and Chris Hook and Eric Tyson and all the big league coaches are going to be working with these guys. They're going to be seeing them every single day, so they're going to be like, oh, okay, now I've gotten to know this kid a little bit. Because this can fast track guys to a big league promotion. We saw it a couple of years ago with Garrett Mitchell when we were getting towards the end of the season in 2022 and the Brewers needed an outfield call-up, and they had Mitchell, they had Frelick, they had Weimer all up there in AAA that were playing well, ready to go. And who did the Brewers call up? They called up Garrett Mitchell. They called up him first. Why? Because the coaching staff was familiar with him because he was an invite to big league camp. Sal Frelick was not in big league camp that year. Joey Weimer was not in big league camp that year. Garrett Mitchell was, and that's why he got the promotion first, because they were familiar with him. And so that could be the case for some of these guys down the line this year. When it comes between them and someone else, maybe, for a promotion later in the season, they could get the look over it because they impress the coaching staff all the way back in spring training. So that's something to keep an eye on. And especially when it comes to these dark horses, because Jesus Madej is going to take the headlines. Cooper Pratt, another top 100 prospect, he's going to take the headlines. Very excited to see both those guys in spring training. But there are some other guys that I think it's very important to point out for fans to keep an eye on. As spring training is going along, as it gets going here in just over 2 weeks, who are the names to actually watch who might actually be making an impact relatively quickly here that maybe you don't know? Because you probably know Jesus Madej. You've probably heard of him. You've probably heard of Cooper Pratt. But a couple of dark horses that I'm keeping my eye on, and I think you should too. Number one is Tate Keener, the left-handed pitcher. He is someone who I think is going to be a really, really good pitcher. 7th round pick out of Louisville in 2023, a senior signed for well below slot to allow the Brewers to actually have enough money to sign Cooper Pratt that year. But Tate Keener last season for AA Biloxi, he was across AA and then he made it to AAA later in the year, but largely for AA Biloxi, he had a 2.77 ERA in 23 starts. 110 in the third innings, 117 strikeouts. This dude was balling. As a left-handed pitcher, left-handed starter, being able to have that kind of workload, to be able to have that kind of success, striking guys out, keeping runs to a minimum. This is someone absolutely who is pushing himself into big-time prospect status. I mean, for me, in my kind of rankings here to start the season, I've got Keener right around the 20 range in the farm system. But he absolutely could end up moving up much higher, perhaps once we see some graduations here too, and get a little bit more under his belt here. But he has made the conversion from kind of essentially what he was thought to be a reliever to being a starter. And he's been able to be healthy the last 2 years, throw over 100 innings each of his first 2 full seasons in the minor leagues, gets a bunch of strikeouts. He does have a little bit of a walks problem, around 4.6 walks per 9. He'll need to bring that down a little bit. But he got a little taste of AAA last season. And Tate Keener, I think he's going to start the year in AAA. But he absolutely could work himself into a spot on this big league pitching staff at some point this season. With him being a non-roster invite, with the amount of pitchers the Brewers generally go through in a year, even with the amount of starting pitching depth that they have, Tate Keener's, he can very much put himself on the radar here for Chris Hook, for Jim Henderson, for Pat Murphy. He can put himself on the radar for this coaching staff with a strong spring training. Keep an eye on Tate Keener. Keep an eye on how he performs. When you see him out there pitching in, the 6th inning of whatever spring training game, pay close attention to how he does, because he's a name to watch this season that I think absolutely could make an impact. And another one that I want to highlight, Ramon Rodriguez, the catcher. Last season, he was lighting it up for AA Biloxi. Played in 21 games, hit .359 with a .457 on base percentage, .941 OPS. And he was just, hitting the snot out of the ball. In 64 at-bats, 81 plate appearances, he had just 4 strikeouts. 4. I mean, just absolutely incredible, stupid numbers. And then he ended up injuring his Achilles in mid-May and was out for the rest of the season. So very unfortunate end to his season last year, but he was dominant for those first couple of weeks of the season. So I'm excited to see what he can do. The Brewers kind of do need some catching depth, in the early parts of spring training. Matt Wood in there as well. And, because all you've got right now are Jefferson Caro and William Contreras. So those are your only catchers on the 40-man roster. So I'm excited to see what Rodriguez can do, because he put up some really, really good numbers last year in a limited sample size. So excited to see him back at full strength from that Achilles injury. And he's another name to kind of watch here. Who could be a guy, going forward. I don't know if he'll ever be a starting catcher in the major leagues, but he could be a backup, certainly, and make it to the big league level. So Ramon Rodriguez is another one to keep an eye on here. Him and Tate Keener are 2 names that I'm really watching from this non-roster invite group. Next up, the trade deadline has been announced, and it will be August 3rd this year. So historically, it was always July 31st. And now it's kind of rotating in this range of like a week here, end of July, early August, because MLB has decided that it's best to have it on either a Monday or a Thursday, which is one of the usual off days for baseball teams, because one, that makes it easier to trade guys and not have to pull them in the middle of a game. To have all these trades coming through, have all these players sitting out on these games. Oh, are they moving? Are they not? It's a lot easier to make those trades when you don't have a game currently ongoing. And also, I mean, it allows you to take up that full day. Even when you don't have as many games going on, you can get the interest of everyone there. But logistically, it makes it so much easier for guys, flying in, moving out to new teams, moving in and around, to have that time in between. It's like, okay, no more games between now and then. Now you can make the move. You don't have to worry about a guy getting injured. You don't have to worry about, anything like that. You can just get the logistics done, get the trade done, and move on from there. So they like having it on one of those days, and this year they put it on August 3rd. So we can't call it the July trade deadline this year. It's the August trade deadline, the August 3rd trade deadline, if you will, because it can't just be straight simple end of July, July 31st. That's when it is. That's how it used to be. Would have been nice, but unfortunately that is no longer the case for this year, so we'll have to deal with it being August 3rd. What will the Brewers do on August 3rd? I don't know. They might be getting, some additions. They might be trading some guys. Maybe not. Maybe they'll do some minor moves, kind of like they did this past year. Nothing too major, but it's always possible for them to make something. What the needs will be, who knows? We still got to get to spring training first and see what the needs are at the time. But they'll be doing something, I'm sure, and trying to hoard their prospects as much as possible. We're trying to convince everyone that, hey, we don't need to make a ton of moves. So that's very much still a possibility. All right, and finally here, just kind of, quick reminder, kind of refresher here. The Brewers still do have 2 open 40-man roster spots that I would imagine that they're going to want to fill before we get to spring training. At least one of them, I would imagine. So I don't know who exactly they're going to get. I've been maintaining for some time now that the Brewers should still get themselves another right-handed reliever. Getting yourself another bullpen option, I think, would be a very good idea. And I think adding another 40-man roster spot to a catcher would be ideal, because right now you just got the 2, Contreras and Caro. I'd like to have a third in there just to provide some insurance in case Caro's not ready yet. You want to get Caro some regular at-bats down in AAA, whatever it is. I'd like to have some insurance for that. I think those are the 2 routes that the Brewers should probably go with these open 40-man spots, but they haven't filled them yet. We're just about 2 weeks from spring training, and free agency is kind of slowed down now that the big guys have signed. A couple of the rest of the big names out there are going. But as we get closer to spring training, a lot of these pitchers, a lot of these relievers, and these guys are still out there, still holding out, they're just going to be willing to accept a deal because they want to get themselves into camp. So I would imagine we start seeing something like that sooner rather than later, because the Brewers have only made one free agent move this offseason, and that's Akil Baddoo. That's all that they've done in free agency so far. So, not that the Brewers were ever expected to be really active. I wasn't expecting them to do a ton this offseason, but those are a couple of routes where I think they're going to add, or at least they should add, and they have the room to without having to send anyone else off the 40-man. So they could try to maintain some flexibility too with guys that maybe make the roster coming into camp. Some of these non-roster invites perhaps that they feel could make the club that they've signed, or if someone else gets cut from another camp that they want to bring in and sign to their 40-man roster, also a possibility. So they could like to have that flexibility, but with 2 spots, I think they, at the very least, should be able to get one person to fill one of those spots before we get to pitchers and catchers reporting. Who that will be, who knows? The Brewers like to grab guys out of absolutely nowhere. I've tried to look at potential ideas. They haven't done anything yet, but we shall see what they end up doing. All right, and of course, once they do make those kinds of moves, we'll talk about it here on Brewers Daily. So be sure to subscribe and get notified every single time a new episode drops. Also follow me on Twitter at dgasper24, and I'll have all my insights and analysis over there as well. Appreciate you watching, appreciate you enjoying, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.